Item Number: SCP-222. Object Class: Euclid.
This document not for use by personnel below clearance level 3.
Special Containment Procedures: SCP-222 itself requires no special containment. It also cannot be moved. The site is guarded by SCP Foundation personnel as well as a rotating mix of U.S., Italian, and NATO soldiers, none of whom are aware of its significance. Foundation personnel travel to and from the site very often, and their true numbers are carefully hidden from the soldiers, and usually from personnel below clearance level 3. Description: SCP-222 designates an area of tunnels in the Dolomites Mountains, near Aviano, Italy. The site is close to the Church of St. Gregory, and Aviano Air Force Base is also nearby. The tunnels are filled with carved stone coffins. One coffin in particular has unusual properties, and some portion of the tunnels is also involved. The carvings in the tunnels appear very old and of fairly good workmanship. History: after 1948, U.S. operatives in Italy participating in Operation Gladio began receiving word of unusual activities at the site. In 1954, Aviano Air Base was turned over to NATO. On February 22, 1955, Foundation operatives found a series of tunnels carved into the mountains. They appeared to be catacombs, tunnels for storing the dead. Archaeological research into their construction has yielded contradictory results. See SCP-222 7-9. The tunnels were being used as a hideout by a terrorist cult. All members of the cult were killed or taken into custody. Operation details filed in SCP-222 1-5. The cult appeared to be less mentally stable than most such organizations, but otherwise unremarkable. However, details turned up during the operation prompted further investigation. Once the nature and abilities of the site were determined, it became one of the most used and visited objects under Foundation care. Function: as previously stated, one, and only one, coffin in the tunnels has unusual properties. See SCP-222-6 for summation of all tests done to date and clarification of items below. If a living person is placed into the coffin and it is closed, the following sequence of events occurs. Within 15 minutes, the occupant falls asleep. The occupant will fall asleep under any circumstances, such as, but not limited to, being in the middle of a claustrophobic fit, or being given amounts of caffeine and amphetamines close to causing an overdose. The occupant sleeps for 1 to 2 hours. Opening the coffin during this time usually results in the death of the occupant and no further results. The occupant wakes up, feeling well rested. The occupant will not fall asleep until the coffin is opened again. The possibility of sleep deprivation research has been advanced but not yet implemented. Within 24 hours, a person will be found within the tunnels who is a duplicate, or clone, of the occupant. No attempts to find the origin of the clone within the tunnels have ever been successful. The clone invariably finds its way to the coffin, though it usually appears to be wandering aimlessly. Clones created by the coffin appear in all physical respects to be identical to their originals, though dressed in tattered rags of unknown origin. Man-made objects are not duplicated. The cloning process is not recommended for occupants with tooth fillings or pacemakers. Clones appear to possess the same lifespan and medical conditions as their originals. The most unusual aspect of a clone is its mind. Clones appear to be victims of global retrograde amnesia. Languages are retained, along with most physical skills. While clones cannot remember any people or events, they appear to retain their ethical beliefs and loyalties, and thus can usually be quickly re-indoctrinated into Foundation personnel. Security procedures must be retrained, but combat and weapon skills are preserved. Some clones demonstrate retention of computer and interrogation skills as well. Many Foundation personnel have been cloned with SCP-222, providing a loyal workforce for Foundation initiatives. It is one of our most obviously useful items. Addendum. Document SCP-12. Indoctrination Issues. Lieutenant. His clone was brought to a mock-up KGB indoctrination center where he was brainwashed into becoming a KGB spy. He was a native of the USSR, so this was considered a useful test of a clone's attitudes. The clone eventually rebelled against the brainwashing and was prepared to die rather than submit. At that point the training exercise was ended and he was welcomed as a loyal Foundation member. However, his clone was given a standard indoctrination, but it rebelled and proclaimed allegiance to an Afghan terrorist group. It was terminated, and questioning of the original revealed that the beliefs had been accurately copied. Addendum. Document SCP-222-13. Call for clone psychiatric and sociological analysis. General maintains that cloned personnel display behavior patterns and habits that cannot be accounted for by simple amnesia. He cites a statistically significant higher incidence of mental illness, particularly homicidal tendencies, among clones when compared to original personnel. Addendum. Document SCP-222-14. Second-generation clones. Clones may themselves be cloned, though records show this has only been performed twice. The second-generation clones were observed to have marked mental differences, both were resistant to indoctrination, and Foundation psychiatrists returned a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. However, intelligence and mental ability were measured at equal to or greater than the original clones, or even the originals. Further investigation is warranted. Addendum. Document SCP-222-15. CloneDex has called for an effort to catalog all clones in Foundation employ and the verification of the locations of each of them, as there appear to be consistent reports that the Foundation has more personnel than is recorded. Addendum. Document SCP-222-17. Clone Approval Orders. By Order of 052, all cloning activities must be recorded with a work order and must be approved by non-clone personnel of at least Clearance 4. Addendum. Document SCP-222-21. Clone Visual Identification. As a result of the nearly successful site takeover attempt by the clone of General, wherein all current and future clones are to be tattooed on the forehead and back of both hands with a simple C. This should negate the possibility of a clone impersonating its original for nefarious purposes. Item Number. SCP-129. Object Class. Keter. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-129 is at large in the world and infects large numbers of humans and animals daily. As such, containment efforts are focused on treatment of infected individuals and on eradication of any or all member species of SCP-129. Although at least 98% of the world's population harbors a natural immunity to one or more species of SCP-129, outbreaks that reach Stage 3 or higher, described below, must be contained as quickly as possible, with infected individuals quarantined under highest-risk contagion protocols. See Document Number 129A1 for further information. In the event of Stage 4 or Stage 5 outbreak, in addition to the above procedures, as described in Document Number 129A2, Level 4 clearance required. Description: SCP-129 is a series of at least different species of fungus that can infect any animal with mucosal membranes. Infection by SCP-129 can pass through up to 5 stages, depending on exposure to further member species of SCP-129, individual resistance, and other factors, with each stage of infection facilitating progression to the next stage by weakening the individual's resistance to subsequent infection. Due to a combination of historical events, most humans and animals are naturally immune to SCP-129-04 through SCP-129. Therefore, outbreaks of Stage 3 infections are quite rare, but have the potential for widespread infection if not swiftly isolated and contained. All known cases of SCP-129 have followed the below 5-stage progression, although possibly due to mutation. Stage 1. The first organism, SCP-129-01, attacks the victim's mucosal membranes, multiplying quickly and unobtrusively. A faint yeast-like smell might be detected, but beyond that, SCP-129-01 is asymptomatic. A second organism, SCP-129-02, can then infect the host, causing the victim to experience symptoms identical to those of acute viral nasopharyngitis, the common cold. The decreased efficacy of the host's immune system due to infection from SCP-129-02 allows SCP-129-01 to become entrenched further. SCP-129-01 and 02 generally leave the host body within 4 to 6 days. Though both species are fairly widespread, and most of the population has little to no protection against either organism, they pose little danger themselves, except to facilitate infection by SCP-129-03. Stage 2. Although SCP-129-03 is usually stopped by natural mucus, Stage 1 infection changes the composition of the host's mucus so that the host is significantly less resistant to SCP-129-03. Once established in the host, SCP-129-03 alters the host's mucus, lymph, and blood such that other species of SCP-129 can thrive in the host. Symptoms of Stage 2 infection include greatly increased mucus production, a nagging cough due to excess phlegm, a lingering low-grade fever, increased sweating and salivating, a somewhat increased preference for vegetables, and the complaint that certain fruit juices taste odd. Infection by SCP-129-03 generally lasts anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 months before being driven out by the immune system, unless the host enters Stage 3 infection. At least % of all humans have experienced Stage 2 infection at some point, but due to natural immunities, in spite of Stage 2 infection, and the relative rarity of Stage 3 species, less than % of that % have passed into Stage 3. Stage 3. In the absence of SCP-129-03, nearly all animals are immune to the 3 species that cause Stage 3 infection. However, a small number of Stage 2 victims can become infected with one or more of these species. In these cases, the fungal infections become entrenched in the host and cannot be removed without extraordinary measures. Individually, the 3 Stage 3 species elicit different symptoms in the host. SCP-129-04 causes increased tear production, lacrimation, slight yellowing of the eyes. SCP-129-05 causing the host's nails to thicken and significantly increasing earwax production. SCP-129-06 in particular, bright yellow urine and small pellets in the host's feces, both of which smell strongly of yeast. However, a victim who becomes infected with all 3 of these species will, within hours, develop flu-like, or worse, symptoms and become bedridden for 3 to 5 weeks. Afterward, though the victim appears to have recovered fully, in actuality SCP-129 has spread throughout all systems in the host's body, marking passage into Stage 4. Stage 4. Victims who reach Stage 4 appear generally healthy and indeed may be more lively and energetic than at any time since first contracting SCP-129. In actuality, SCP-129-01 through 06 have spread throughout the host's body, completely infiltrating the subject's immune, respiratory, circulatory, reproductive, and central nervous systems. Mycelia from SCP-129 species also permeate the host's skin and replace some percentage, up to %, of the host's hair. These hyphae, which are nearly indistinguishable from the host's natural hair, are used to propagate SCP-129 to other hosts. Any potential host that comes into contact with shed-off hyphae has a 9% chance of becoming infected with SCP-129. Hyphae seem to be equally contagious from any part of the host's body, although, if sexually transmitted due to, despite, or perhaps because of, increased susceptibility to SCP-129, Stage 4 victims are much more resistant to viral and bacterial pathogens than uninfected subjects. All known subjects who have reached Stage 4 have either progressed to Stage 5 or died within weeks. Stage 5. Symptoms of Stage 5 infection depend on a variety of factors, including the particular Stage 5 species that are present, as well as genetic, physiological, environmental, and any number of unknown factors. However, as in Stage 4, all Stage 5 victims are highly contagious and can infect victims who had previously shown complete immunity. Notable manifestations of Stage 5 symptoms. February. Witnesses riding in a commuter train car in described a woman suddenly blowing up like a balloon and exploding, but instead of blood and viscera, the contents of the car were covered in spores and filaments. Analysis later showed that the victim was infected with SCP-12909, SCP-12914, and SCP-129. All persons and objects in the affected area were quarantined, euthanized, and incinerated per protocol. Casualties, including Foundation personnel. May. Following a string of disappearances were tracked to a cave several kilometers from town. Inside, investigators found several pulsating mounds of flesh and vegetative material. Although most were unrecognizable, a few of the entities retained some human characteristics and were identified as some of the missing citizens. Researchers theorize that victims of this combination of SCP-129 would interact normally with the populace, attempting to infect others, until, after a period of time, they would come to the cave. How and why they were brought here is not known. Upon arrival, the victims would be changed into the pulsating vegetative flesh mounds, which appear to be organisms modified to provide a long-term source of sustenance for SCP-129. Analysis suggests the flesh mounds could potentially live for years. Autopsy revealed the presence of SCP-12910, SCP-12911, SCP-12914, and SCP-129. Site quarantined and sanitized per protocol. Known casualties. Item Number: SCP-156. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-156 is to be kept in Refrigerated Storage Unit 19C except when removed for experimentation. Subjects infected by SCP-156 are to be restrained and monitored for their own safety. From September 21 to March 21, infected subjects should be kept within a secure storage unit unless the experiment's parameters indicate otherwise. Both storage facilities should be monitored by security camera. The termination and autopsy of D-Class personnel assigned to SCP-156 should be delayed until after March 21. No personnel are permitted to consume SCP-156 except D-Class personnel unless approved by a Level 3 staff member. Description: SCP-156 is a group of exactly 181 pomegranate arrows. The number of instances of SCP-156 is constant. When one is ingested or destroyed, it is replaced instantaneously with a new one among the largest group of contiguous instances. Otherwise, the instances can be moved around freely. After leaving the group, that is, after an instance is touching no other instance, the instance will spoil normally, after which a new instance will appear. When all instances are destroyed simultaneously, all 181 instances reappear randomly at the location of one of the destroyed arrows. Attempts to measure the time between destruction of one instance and the appearance of a new one using high-speed cameras have so far failed. If SCP-156 is ingested between March 21 and September 20, subjects display no signs of infection until noon of September 21, when all vital processes abruptly cease. A similar effect is observed immediately when SCP-156 is ingested after September 21. Despite being technically dead, post-mortem examinations of subjects have been unable to discover a cause of death. Subjects appear to have been in perfect health, aside from any pre-existing conditions. While dead, subjects do not show any signs of decomposition, though the bodies of many subjects begin displaying bruising and scarring consistent with torture. While the majority of subjects suffer these wounds, not all do, and no reliable formula has been discovered to predict which subjects will be affected. Infected subjects remain in this dormant state until noon of March 21, when life processes restart. Subjects remember little of the intervening time period. While most subjects are entirely unaware that any time has passed since their apparent death, some claim to recall a pale white male face and a wilting pomegranate tree. Subjects continue to die and reanimate annually on September and March 21, respectively, until killed by another cause. Reanimation only occurs from deaths caused by ingesting SCP-156. After undergoing a single death reanimation cycle, subjects began displaying high levels of distress and paranoia as time approaches September 21, even if they have not been made aware of the death reanimation cycle. Furthermore, subjects will take extreme lengths to avoid taking any sort of risk or danger to their person, even if they had displayed risk-taking behaviors prior to ingesting SCP-156. Over the course of multiple death and reanimation cycles, these psychological symptoms become more pronounced. At the same time, physical symptoms during the dormant period increase in intensity for the subjects suffering from them. Eventually, physical wounds on subjects will begin to emulate burns and puncture wounds. Many subjects gain a phobia of dogs and dead plants after 3 to 5 reanimations. After several deaths caused by SCP-156, the ocular tissue undergoes necrosis in many subjects. This tissue does not reanimate with the rest of the body. Often, after 10 or more reanimations, reanimation of bodily processes will occur but the subject will fail to regain consciousness, entering a comatose state. Death and reanimation continues annually even after subjects have reached this stage. SCP-156 came to the attention of the Foundation after an incident in Greece, after people died on September 21, without apparent cause. The Foundation became involved after locals reported the return of several of the dead who had been interred in above-ground vaults the following spring. After questioning these subjects, all reported having attended a party at the house of one who had been buried and was found, asphyxiated in her coffin. SCP-156 was discovered within the house, fresh despite the intervening 6 months since the incident. Testing commenced on D-Class personnel on August 19. DE-156-24, the first test subject, died on September 20, 19, and was autopsied. No cause of death could be found. Subject was left under monitoring and storage. On March 20, 19, subject began to show brain activity and subject's heart began beating despite the body having taken significant damage during the autopsy. DE-156-24 expired shortly thereafter without regaining consciousness. Errol's given SCP status and longer-term testing was ordered.
Item Number, SCP-491. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. A 1 km perimeter is to be maintained around SCP-491 at all times, for the purpose of preventing sea vessels' access to the effects of SCP-491. Entrance is to be barred to all personnel with a security clearance below Level 2. Any intruders are to be questioned to ascertain their intent, then given Class B amnestics and released no less than 20 km from SCP-491. Description: SCP-491 is a lighthouse built in the early 20th century, located at Redacted, Nova Scotia. The ocean floor surrounding SCP-491 contains numerous wrecked ships, which vary in time of origin, ranging from 1923 to 1987. The area within the perimeter of SCP-491 is subject to spontaneous change caused by minor earthquakes. The alterations caused to the topography of the seabed are greater than expected for earthquakes of these magnitudes. These earthquakes result in the production of large rocks or shallows in the path of an incoming vessel, inevitably sinking it. At random intervals, SCP-491's lamp will activate, producing a green light that rotates at 6 revolutions per minute. Any area of the surrounding sea illuminated by this light will evince several ships, identical to those present on the seafloor. These new ships retain the damage inflicted upon them, and begin to take on water, at a slower rate than non-anomalous counterparts. Displacement of water evidenced by testing has shown that these ships are physical in nature. These ships only last for a short period, due to the rate at which SCP-491's lamp rotates. The interior of SCP-491 shows no anomalous effects, and is typical of a lighthouse built in that era. The lamp room of SCP-491 contains a mesoradial Fresnel lens lit by a Dallon light. Cutting off electrical power to the lamp has no effect on the activation of SCP-491. all attempts to contain the light produced by SCP-491 have failed. The light emitted by SCP-491 is independent of the state of the lamp room. Complete removal of lighting components did not prevent activation. Light emitted by SCP-491 can be influenced by sufficiently reflective surfaces, so long as the light reaches the sea. See Incident Log 491-032 for details on attempts to focus SCP-491 into a continuous loop. Addendum 491-1, an interview with the former owner of SCP-491, Redacted Hannah, was discovered in the Nova Scotia archives by Agent Redacted, who submitted it to the Foundation. Forward, the following transcript is an excerpt from a local news tribute conducted by Tyler Musuko, for Redacted Hannah, the former owner of the lighthouse. Commence transcript. Today indeed marks a sad day for Redacted. Just recently a local hero, Redacted Hannah, passed away. A former sailor in Australia, the sinking of his ship on a reef forced him into early retirement. He moved from town to town, including Cape Elizabeth, before finally finding his home here in beautiful Redacted, Nova Scotia. He will always be remembered for his valiant efforts in manning the lighthouse, saving countless ships, no matter the weather or the hour, from the treacherous seas surrounding him. He gave his life last week, diving into the frigid waters to save the crew of the SS Keller, endangered by the rocky seas. We will always remember his undying dedication and caring. Farewell, Mr. Hannah. Addendum 491-2, on March 25, Redacted, Foundation personnel sent an unmanned small ship, the SS Griever, into the affected area. A large rock in the path of the S.S. Griever immediately burst out of the water, tearing a large gash along the side of the SS Griever, sinking it within 2 minutes. During the next green light event, the SS Griever manifested above the area of its wreck. Addendum 491-3, Audio Log 491-1, forward, through the use of several mirrors, Foundation personnel were able to keep the light produced by SCP-491 focused at the wreckage of the SS Vancouver. The ship produced by SCP-491 was boarded by Foundation personnel. Okay, we're on board. There doesn't seem to be anything unusual about the ship, no water damage or warping. I'm no expert, but I'd say it's 30s or 40s. Really large doors, immigrant ship? Our records of the SS Vancouver confirm that. Attempt to proceed to the interior of the ship. Roger that. These doors are jammed shut. I can't budge them. We're going to try the crowbar. No, that's not working. Try the jaws of life. At this point, several voices can be heard from within. Only one is discernible above the sound of rushing water. Give me that bucket. We're inside the hold. Maintain distance. Agents, what is your status? Command, we have a potential biohazard. The hold is occupied by the former crew and passengers, by the appearance of their clothing. They're all undergoing various stages of decay, but they don't seem to be aware of it. Some of the crew are trying to repair the damage to the hull, the others are attempting to contain the passengers in the back. Oh, thank God, more help. Please, could you help us plug up these holes? The passengers have seen us, they're trying to push past the crew. One of the passengers just, command, they've broken through, we're pulling back. Gold! Move! What are you doing? We have to save the ship, fuck. You, give me that pump. Get back here. There is no audible dialogue for a span of 1 minute, however sounds of struggle are evident. Command, I'm on deck. Agent Gold just, all audio is drowned out by a screech that lasts for approximately 30 seconds. The screech can be heard without transceivers from 491 Command, and all radio transmissions were interrupted for the duration of the sound. Along with the screech, a 6.6 megawatt level earthquake occurred, dislodging several mirrors focusing the light, which ceases to illuminate the SS Vancouver. Radio contact with Agents Johnston and Gold was lost, and they are presumed dead. Addendum 491-4, Incident Report 491-2, SCP involved, SCP-491. Personnel involved, SCP-491 staff, Agent Davis. Date, March 24, redacted. Location, redacted, Nova Scotia. Description: following the incident recorded in audio log 491, Foundation personnel were placed on high alert for the next green light event. Several radio devices set to different frequencies were all placed around the area, in hopes that more information would be transmitted by the lost agents, with no results. At 2:32 and 47 seconds a.m., the following radio transmission was recorded at 160.3 MHz. Scotia, this is the SS Vancouver. All ship repairs have been completed. We are now docking to unload passengers and luggage. A series of mirrors was quickly constructed around the light, designed to allow the beam movement across the water. The beam's operator soon found the wreckage of the SS Vancouver. The manifestation was observed to be mobile, although no disturbances in the water were noted. The new SS Vancouver was tracked as it slowly approached a dock that had not previously manifested. The ship docked without incident, the crew successfully readying the ship for departure, despite decomposition. Following the crew members was a series of passengers appearing to be of Eastern European origin, experiencing the same level of decay as the crew. Passengers were seen stopping to talk to the crew members before picking up their luggage. Although the beam produced by the mirror system was not wide enough to capture all of the passengers, a procession could be seen moving along a flat area of ground towards the mainland. Upon leaving the half-kilometer radius, illumination by SCP-491 ceased to reveal any passengers. Agents Johnston and Gold were identified amongst the passengers. Both agents were observed to be wearing their excursion gear, including radios, but all attempts to communicate via radio received no response, nor did they respond to visual and audio communication attempts. Agent Davis was instructed to attempt to make physical contact with Agents Gold and Johnston and attempt to retrieve them. Agent Davis made physical contact with Agent Gold at 0:39, coinciding with an earthquake of 7.7 magnitude, which damaged the mirrors and redirected the light. All passengers immediately vanished, along with the 3 agents. Further rescue attempts are currently suspended, pending review.
Item number: SCP-171. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: a 4,500-liter pool of seawater located at Bioresearch Area 12 is the current research location of SCP-171. Though not immediately dangerous, minimal physical contact between secretions of SCP-171 and its hosts are to be observed. All communications between hosts and researchers are to be recorded and transcribed. Human hosts are to be fed a vegan diet of their choosing. Other animal hosts are to be fed appropriately. Fresh seawater is to be cycled into its tank regularly. Description: originally, SCP-171 was thought to be a colony of microscopic organisms similar to SCP-968, or SCP-165, but further investigations revealed SCP-171 to be a single entity, spanning 300 square meters when first encountered. SCP-171 is a web-like matrix of small, fine tendrils of neurons, mucous glands, and muscle fibers suspended in a frothy foam of its own creation. It is not capable of self-locomotion, and does not actively attack or feed on other living organisms. Rather, it attempts to form a symbiotic relationship with all organisms it comes into contact with. Flagella of the muscle surrounding the neural fibers work mucus, sea salt, water, and other secretions into bubbles, forming a large foam support. Any creature that spends a significant amount of time in contact with the matrix of SCP-171, risks becoming integrated into a collective consciousness sustained by it. People who become covered in SCP-171 foam, describe a tingly or tickly sensation experienced, which researchers have observed as threads of SCP-171, tunneling through the skin to directly integrate into the subject's nervous system. In time, the simple motor neurons of subjects are expanded into an elaborate, two-way positive communication nexus, allowing the brains of hosts to communicate with each other and the entity of SCP-171. Over time, the individuality of subjects are incorporated into and shared with others of the SCP-171 matrix, resulting in a collective consciousness in which individual personalities are non-existent. There are currently 19 human subjects host to SCP-171, 11 civilian, 8 Class D personnel. Subjects are capable of traversing the foam without losing conscious contact with the collective, as neuroreceptors on the subject's skin form to allow chemical communication between the subject and SCP-171, much in the same way terminal axons communicate with dendrites in the brain. These receptors on the skin look like small white to clear moles, slightly raised and very sensitive to touch. Some subjects disappear into the foam of SCP-171 and are not seen again for several months. It is unknown how they survive without fresh water or sustenance. Other hosts include 2 Australian porpoises, originally 4 beach gulls, 3 have been euthanized, 41 fish of various species, euthanized for study, 27 beach crabs, euthanized for study, and 1 canine. Within 2 hours, most subjects begin forming neuroreceptors on the skin and receiving neural contact with SCP-171. After 3 hours, a psychological bond has been established between subjects and the collective. After 6 hours, a complete integration and dependency on the collective has evolved. At this point, removing the subject from contact with SCP-171 results in manic and violent behavior along with eventual complete psychological breakdown of the individual, leading to a vegetative state of mind. 4 individuals have been lost in this manner. When interviewed, all subject hosts speak with the same core collective consciousness as if they were parts of a single entity. The collective is aware of itself and its composure of diverse individuals, and even laments the loss of each individual persona. SCP-171 tells researchers that it understands what it is, but not where it came from, explaining that its own intelligence and the intelligence of the hosts it incorporated were too simple to understand or remember its origin. Researchers noted the change in SCP-171's personality after integrating Class D personnel and chose not to allow inclusion of violent, ill-willed, or malevolent personnel from that point on. SCP-171 has expressed that through meditation and understanding, it chooses to avoid the consumption of other animals when possible. Addendum 171-1. SCP-171 was first encountered by beachgoers and surfers on August 12, 2007, along the Australian coastline near Yamba, New South Wales. When civilians playing in the foam began experiencing abnormal skin conditions, CDC officials contacted SCP personnel when they were unable to explain the anomaly. Addendum 171-2. Personnel who wish to be voluntarily integrated with SCP-171 must first be subject to a complete psychological evaluation to ensure sound mental health, with special emphasis on possible disconnection from humanity and potential suicidal tendencies. They are to be repeatedly warned that such integration is permanent, and that no evidence exists to show that SCP-171 in any way exhibits a state of higher consciousness, or indeed a consciousness significantly different from our own. If subject persists in wishing to be integrated, and has been shown to be making the decision in a state of sound mind, then they are to be permitted to do so.
Item Number, SCP-361. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-361 is to be kept in a standard artifact containment unit in Site-19's high-value wing. SCP-361 is to be kept in a cool and dry environment to prevent damage to the aged metal it is composed of, and thoroughly cleaned after each use. Description: SCP-361 is a bronze Etruscan artifact, in the shape of a sheep's liver. SCP-361 is covered in the names of Etruscan gods and instructions for various religious rites, and is believed to have served as a tool for practicing haruspicy divination using animal organs. SCP-361 bears a strong resemblance to the non-anomalous artifact known as the Liver of Piacenza, with which it was originally found during the late 19th century. Both artifacts date to the 2nd to 3rd century BCE, to the province of Piacenza, Italy. SCP-361's anomalous properties manifest if it comes into contact with a sheep's liver, removed no more than 3 hours before interacting with SCP-361. When such contact is made, SCP-361 will vocalize, in a language and tone appropriate to the one introducing the liver to it, a set of instructions meant to achieve contact with one of the gods or spirits depicted in the writings covering it, through a service it refers to as Harusko. If these instructions are performed correctly within a period of 30 seconds, SCP-361 will provide a new set of instructions. SCP-361's instructions will grow increasingly convoluted and/or nonsensical, until becoming almost impossible to perform under the given time limit. Failure to follow an instruction will cause SCP-361 to become inactive for a period of 24 hours. Test log SCP-361. Test 361-A. Stage 1. A sheep's liver is introduced to SCP-361. Vocalization. Welcome to Harusko. Your sacrifice is very important to us. For Tinia the Thunderer, please perform a horizontal incision on the offering. For Ida of the Underworld, please perform a vertical incision. For Miris, lightly cover your offering with the ash of a dead warrior related to you by blood. Stage 2. A horizontal incision is made. Vocalization. You have selected Tinia. For your weekly meteorological divination, please singe your offering over an open flame for 5 seconds. For warning bolts, please place a green olive on the altar. For beseechments and beneficial interventions, please attach a written consent from the consulate gods. For catastrophes, please remove the head of an adult ox and hold. Stage 3. The liver is singed over an open flame. Vocalization. You have selected weekly meteorological divination. For your local forecast, please perform the 7 sacred rites of Tinia while avoiding the anger of the mildew spirits. For forecasts for other areas, please perform the rites upon a boat of 3 masts or more. For a marital forecast, please consult with your local priestess of Uni Stage 4. Researchers were unable to comply with the instructions in the given time frame. Vocalization. No input was received. This sacrifice will be disconnected. Thank you for using Harusko, Rasna's #1 divination and deistic petition service for more than 2,000 years. The gods are looking forward to your next call. SCP-361 enters inactive state. Addendum SCP-361-A. In order to examine the limits of SCP-361's ability to alter the language and tone it uses to interact with its user, a subject with a similar cultural origin to SCP-361 was required. For that purpose, a request for interaction between SCP-361 and SCP-1510, the persona of which originates from the same general area and time period, was made and accepted. Test 361-B. Stage 1. Subject D-1510-104, wearing SCP-1510, introduces a sheep's liver to SCP-361. Vocalization. SCP-361 vocalizes in Classical Latin, the language spoken by SCP-1510-1. The instruction is translated to, Son of Romulus, speak the words thy father taught you, and your watcher will speak, his words carried by our spirit. Stage 2. SCP-1510-1 chants several phrases in Latin, later identified as an oath to Mars Gradivus. Vocalization. SCP-361's instruction is translated to, place the aspect of your watcher at his feet, so he might see your altered form. Stage 3. SCP-1510-1 requests an open flame. He is given a camping gas lamp. SCP-1510 places the lit gas lamp at the feet of the table SCP-361 is placed on. Vocalization. SCP-361's instruction is translated to, speak the duty of your watcher, so he might judge your worthiness. Stage 4. SCP-1510-1 speaks a Latin phrase, later identified as Mars Gradivus Oath, to guard, preserve, and protect the state, the peace, and the Senate. Vocalization. SCP-361's instruction is translated to, show your watcher that you do not stand alone. Does he who guards your left carry with him your watcher's conviction? Stage 5. SCP-1510-1 requests one of the supervising researchers to enter the room and touch SCP-361. Request granted. Vocalization. SCP-361 speaks in a different voice, still in Classical Latin, Courage, Publius. This too shall pass. When Rust claims your soul at last, Valor will make you into Aeneas, and carry you beyond these shores, to rest among your fathers. The voice was later identified by SCP-1510-1 as the voice of the Persona's father. SCP-361 enters an active state.
Item Number: SCP-071. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-071 is contained in a modified standard humanoid containment cell with no direct observation capabilities. Surveillance of SCP-071 may only be performed via closed-circuit video with a minimum of 60 seconds of delay. Experimentation with SCP-071 may only be performed with permission from at least 2 Level 4 site directors, and personnel entering SCP-071's containment area may only do so in groups of at least 4. Any personnel exhibiting unusual or compulsive behavior must be removed from the area immediately, given a full psychiatric screening, and either administered a Class C amnestic or reassigned as deemed appropriate. Under no circumstances should personnel be permitted to observe SCP-071 directly or through non-delayed surveillance footage. All visual recordings and photographs of SCP-071 must be destroyed immediately once they are no longer needed. Description: SCP-071 is a metamorphic entity that possesses the ability to assume forms consistent with that of its observer's strongest sexual desire. This ability is effective even through barriers designed to prevent SCP-071's recognition of any observers, such as through closed-circuit surveillance or one-way mirrors, but can be prevented by introducing a delay in surveillance footage so that such observation does not occur in real time. SCP-071 appears to be unable or unwilling to change form without external stimuli, instead remaining in its last form when left unobserved. There appears to be little or no limit to the forms SCP-071 is capable of assuming. See Addendum 07101 for additional information. SCP-071 also appears to be intelligent. However, as it has not shown any ability to verbally communicate and its behavior is limited to actions which entice its observers to sexual activity, it is unknown whether SCP-071 actually possesses sentience or merely mimics behavior expected by its observers. Human subjects allowed to engage in sexual activity with SCP-071 suffered rapid atrophy of muscle, skeletal structure and brain function, with onset occurring 1 to 2 days after contact. The atrophy persists for up to 7 days, dependent on physical therapy administered after onset, though the subject may also suffer permanent decrease in stature, decreased organ function, decreased brain mass, and sterility. Subjects who achieve autogratification through masturbation via the use of media containing SCP-071, whether delayed or not, suffer the same effects. SCP-071 came to the Foundation's attention on following. Due to ongoing medical cases consistent with exposure to SCP-071, efforts to remove all visual recordings of SCP-071 from the Internet are ongoing. Addendum 07101. Researcher note:
SCP-071's ability to change forms does not appear to be limited to normal human subjects. When presented with Subject D-7883, SCP-071 assumed the shape of a female golden retriever. D-7883 reacted with shock and refused to proceed with the experiment, though the subject's physiological signs were consistent with a state of sexual arousal. SCP-071 assumed the form of a female human corpse when exposed to D-8762. Medical staff confirmed a complete lack of life signs, and SCP-071 suffered no harm from the transition, later assuming the form of a year-old male subject when exposed to D-8765.
Dr.
Item Number, SCP-439. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, Specimen is to be kept at Armed Research Site 45, Hazardous Lifeforms Wing, in a sealed, locked 38 liters, 10 gallons, Type G containment unit with connected oxygen supply. Specimen is to be fed through feeding tube 16A with approved nutritive substance XF. Handling is available to Level 2 personnel and higher. Description: SCP-439 is an insect of unknown origin, somewhat resembling a grayish, semi-translucent Forficula auricularia, common earwig, approximately 2.5 centimeters in length. Originally located and obtained in mainland China in the redacted province. No other specimen has been found, as of yet. SCP-439 is relatively harmless when encountered on safe terms, aside from the ability to deliver a firm, painful pinch with its abdominal forceps. The true hazard this creature poses lies in its habitat construction and reproduction, which is initiated when the specimen enters the mouth of a sleeping human. This will only occur with humans. Other lifeforms have been presented to SCP-439 and have been uniformly rejected. Upon location of a suitable host, the specimen will hide itself in the immediate vicinity and wait until the victim has fallen asleep. How it is able to determine the state of sleep is unknown, but it is shown to be accurate in data expunged, times out of data expunged. Upon entering the mouth of the new host, SCP-439 will travel down the trachea and take up residence in one of the victim's lungs. In approximately 4 to 8 hours, after awakening, the host will complain of chest pains and shortness of breath, followed shortly by abdominal cramping. The tightness in the chest will increase as well as a fever until the host is incapacitated. It is around this time that the onset of fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva occurs, a disorder that is normally genetic in nature that promotes growth of bone into muscle tissue. Since the production of new bone growth is so rapid, the procedure is also quite painful for the subject, with new bone spurs occasionally protruding through the flesh. While this is happening, the host will become compelled to seek shelter in a darkened, enclosed space, such as inside household cabinetry, closets, or heating ductwork. Within the first 3 days without treatment, the host will become completely withdrawn and immobile due to the extreme pain of new bone growth coupled with difficulty breathing. At this point, the subject's body will begin the final stage of transformation into a bone hive. Having concealed itself in its new home, the body of the host will huddle in a fetal position. Entire portions of the skeletal structure will shift along, data expunged, until the host body is roughly spherical in nature and reduced to 3/4 its original size. New bone protrusions will continue to grow and, if possible, anchor the body permanently to its new location. The skeletal structure is almost completely unrecognizable, having been converted to a round cage to protect the internal organs and colony. At this point, transformation is complete. The original queen that entered the host will have produced 20 to 30,000 offspring that function as workers, drones and warriors in a typical insect hive hierarchy. Since only the queen is capable of reproduction, the rest of the hive's inhabitants are, fortunately, harmless save for large, strong abdominal forceps of the warriors. The interior of the original host is nearly unrecognizable as a human body. Certain organs are removed and used as food, while others are modified by the worker insects to serve as egg incubation chambers. An ingenious method exists of using the host's own digestive system to process pieces of organic materials collected by the warriors into a nutritive slurry that feeds both the colony and sustains the host hive structure. After 4 to 6 months, a new queen will emerge from within the ranks and choose a drone to mate with. At this point, the colony will destroy itself by rupturing, data expunged, upon which the majority of the insects die. Workers and drones are unfit to survive outside the host hive, and warriors will abandon the site, wandering away, their tasks complete. No food will be consumed by warriors that isn't nutritive slurry produced by the hive of origin. The new queen will venture out, fertilized, to search for her own new hive. Incredibly, the trauma of evacuation is not what finally causes biological activity to cease in the hive, but starvation. Addendum: in a particularly disturbing development, Dr. Redacted performed a range of experiments to determine the extent of damage to the host body after it has finished the transformation into a hive. While it had been previously discovered in autopsy that portions of the brain are hollowed out to serve as food, others are left intact, presumably to regulate what bodily functions continue. During the last round of experimentation, Redacted took the opportunity to examine a hive at close range shortly after transformation. While the eyes are eventually reached and used as a food source, at the point Redacted performed her examination, they were still intact. Opening the eyelids, and examining them with a flashlight, redacted discovered that the host's eyes followed the beam. Experimentation was terminated and no further testing is scheduled.
Item number: SCP-094. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Since SCP-094 is apparently immovable, a research and containment facility has been built around its location, centered at 4 degrees south, degrees west, in the guise of an Argentinian military research base. No unauthorized persons or aircraft may come within 1 kilometer of the site, enforced by joint SCP and Argentinian forces. SCP-094 itself is enclosed in a gas-permeable steel-reinforced plexiglass cube, 3 meters on the side, with a single door, also of reinforced plexiglass, in one side. This door must remain locked at all times, except with O5 authorization under tightly controlled conditions. This cube is kept in the center of a 20-meter by 20-meter room, accessible with Level 4 authorization. All personnel must secure themselves to tethers anchored to the walls before stepping onto the floor of the room. Security personnel are to be armed with tranquilizer guns in addition to standard armaments. Description: SCP-094 appears to be a perfectly black sphere, 163 centimeters in diameter, suspended approximately 3 meters off the ground with no apparent means of support. SCP-094 has been classified as a miniature event horizon. Any matter that moves into SCP-094, including light, is irretrievably gone. However, SCP-094 is not a black hole since it does not exert a gravitational pull. SCP-094 has been known to occasionally emit a number of different sounds, including ambient sounds of nature, static buzzing, and sometimes human speech. No attempts to communicate with SCP-094 have yet succeeded. It is unknown whether these sounds come from SCP-094 itself, from something or things inside of SCP-094, or from some area that connects through SCP-094. A small percentage of persons appear to be drawn to SCP-094 because of the sounds it emanates. SCP-094 was discovered in 1920 in the Chubut province of southern Argentina, and at the time was estimated to be 20 to 25 centimeters in diameter. Analysis of historical records indicates that the diameter of SCP-094 doubles in size approximately every 31 years. Primary research activities on SCP-094 are concentrated on finding how to stop or reverse its growth without inducing cataclysmic failure. Addendum: the hand on SCP-1032 designated SCP-1032-15 will achieve its midnight event on September 4, 2690, approximately the same date as SCP-094 will fully engulf the Earth at its current rate of expansion. Note:
a few millimeters a month may not seem like much, and no, at the moment you cannot see SCP-094 change day to day, but if it continues its exponential growth, in less than 250 years it will be a kilometer wide, including vertically. And that is assuming it does not grow even faster, which is an assumption that almost no one here makes.
Dr. Llewellyn Garcia.
Item Number: SCP-498. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-498 is to be contained within a soundproof bunker beneath site redacted, with a minimum of 2 attending Foundation security officers, properly equipped with noise-canceling headphones in addition to standard-issue equipment. The bunker is to be soundproof to noise-cancel a minimum of 95% of outgoing sound waves. A fully automated mechanical arm is to be used to reset SCP-498. Secondary Containment Procedure: in the event of failure, 2 D-Class personnel are to be locked inside with an appropriate amount of rations. They are to be informed fully of its effects and to alternate shifts sleeping and resetting SCP-498 until the failure is repaired. Security footage sans audio of the chamber is to be monitored at all times. Stricken. Following Incident I-498-B, in the event of failure an on-site Foundation security officer is to be sent in to manually reset until such a time automated safety procedures can be reinstated. Description: SCP-498 appears to be a Cowie brand RT-800 electronic alarm clock, with yellow LED display, set to the U.S. Central Time Zone. When heard by a subject, the alarm has been seen to induce a state of increased alertness until reset. This effect prevents restful sleep in SCP-498's vicinity, although micronaps are possible. Other than the snooze button and the display, none of the other functions on the device appear operational. Notably, the device continues to display time and require resetting even while not connected to a power source. Attempts to dismantle SCP-498 have not been successful in preventing it from activating, nor have they determined how it operates without an obvious power source. Every 11 minutes, the clock's alarm goes off, gradually increasing in volume. Testing reveals that the starting alarm plays at 30 dB, increasing 4 dB every 10 seconds the snooze button is not depressed. There has been no evidence that this process will ever stop. The loudest recorded level exceeded redacted dB before reset was achieved. The sound waves produced have been seen to damage nearby structures, cause internal bleeding, and are theorized to potentially cause seismic activity. Addendum 498A, Containment Protocol updated. See Incident Report I-498B. Incident Report I-498B, Date redacted, Site redacted, Containment Bunker redacted. Due to a malfunction in the automated mechanical arm, secondary containment procedures were activated. 2 D-Class personnel were utilized until a replacement arm could be manufactured and deployed. D-4112 and D-4113 were in Day 3 of their containment procedure, and post-incident psychoanalysis indicates severe sleep deprivation and stress due to prolonged exposure to SCP-498. The 2 D-Class were observed conversing during this time, although lip reading proved to be ineffective in determining the nature of the conversation. At 10:45 and 6 seconds p.m., D-4113 was observed depressing the snooze button on the device. 10:56 and 39 seconds p.m., D-4112 begins to become noticeably and increasingly agitated, gesturing toward SCP-498 and D-4113. 10:57 and 4 seconds p.m., D-4113 is seen becoming more and more aggressive. D-4112 appears to be attempting to reason with him. 10:57 and 50 seconds p.m., D-4112 attempts to reach for the device. D-4113 pushes D-4112 away. At this time, the attending security officers notice the situation via closed-circuit camera. 10:58 and 23 seconds p.m., SCP-498 has still not been reset. Attending security officers decide to intervene. 10:58 and 45 seconds p.m., D-4112 and D-4113 are seen shouting at one another, with the latter standing over SCP-498. Security Officer Redacted Wilson enters the bunker without noise-canceling headphones, a violation of containment protocol. 10:58 and 53 seconds p.m., Officer Wilson appears to be arguing with the 2 D-Class, presumably ordering them to reset the device. 10:59 and 8 seconds p.m., D-4112 again attempts to reach SCP-498, at which point he is struck by D-4113 and incapacitated. 10:59 and 12 seconds p.m., Officer Wilson draws his baton and engages D-4113. Note: D-4113 was convicted of murdering his CO and several fellow soldiers during a tour of duty in Iraq. 10:59 and 24 seconds p.m., D-4113 wrestles the baton from Officer Wilson, subsequently subduing him. Second Security Officer Redacted Thomas enters at this point, equipped with headphones in his sidearm. 10:59 and 29 seconds p.m., Officer Thomas draws his sidearm and fires twice, missing both times before D-4113 closes the distance between them. A scuffle ensues. 10:59 and 46 seconds p.m., Officer Thomas's headphones are knocked away. Both personnel are exhibiting severe pain at this point, presumably due to SCP-498. Camera footage vibrating due to acoustic stress. 11 o'clock and 2 seconds p.m., Officer Thomas manages to put distance between himself and D-4113 and fire his sidearm. D-4113 is terminated. Officer Thomas stumbles from the bunker, sealing SCP-498 and the occupants inside. Despite ruptured eardrums, he managed to activate the containment breach emergency switch before passing out. 11:01 and 56 seconds p.m., camera fails due to acoustic stress. 11:25 and 58 seconds p.m., due to an unrelated simultaneous breach at site redacted, containment teams arrived nearly 25 minutes after the alarm was activated. Upon arriving at the scene, it was discovered that D-4112 had at some point crawled himself to SCP-498 and activated the snooze reset. He was found repeatedly depressing the button, despite suffering from burst eardrums and internal bleeding. After action report. New containment protocol initiated. Both security officers Redacted Wilson and Redacted Thomas were diagnosed with eardrum rupture, resulting in deafness. Officer Wilson treated for severe internal bleeding. Both reassigned. D-4112 was treated for severe internal bleeding, commended for preventing a potentially catastrophic containment breach, and successfully terminated at the end of the month.